both for inviting me to read tonight, but also for all the help that you've given to me over the years to develop my writing. You've got a very generous spirit, and you're very generous with your time and your expertise, so thank you. I'm going to read, start off with a poem about the sea. It's a ghazal, and it's called The Sound of the Waves, and it's about how the sound of the waves evokes memories. The sound of the waves. It's the breath in the shell at your ear, the sound of the waves. Stay quiet and let it appear, the sound of the waves. Down on the beach with the grandad, digging a hole for the sea, to the cries of the gulls and the sound of the waves. Learning to swim with the auntie who holds up my chin much too hard, my shrieks stopped by tears and the sound of the waves. Sent to bed in the strange little room with the beam from the lighthouse that sweeps round the walls to the steer of the sound of the waves. The rain on my window the night of the storm which blew up on the fishermen, lost in the fearful sound of the waves. They're long gone, they're fading away, and they'll soon be forgotten, but I'm listening. Their voices are here in the sound of the waves. Now, a couple of weeks ago, there was a lovely day. It was sunny and windy. And in fact, it was like that this morning, but it certainly isn't like that now in Liverpool. But a couple of weeks ago, when there was a day like that, I found myself going around the house and opening up every single window to let this freezing cold air into the house. And as I was doing it, I was thinking, why do I love doing this so much? Where have I got this from? So I realized and wrote a poem about it, which is called Changing the Air. My mother loved days like this. She used to say that every housewife's favourite sound was the joyous flap of shirts stretching their wings on the line, getting bone dry for lunchtime. She would wrap herself into her flowery pinny, set to with hoover, mop and duster till the house was redd up, then fling back the curtains and open all the windows to change the air. My father would draw on his pipe and ask from behind the Scotsman what the difference was between the molecules outside the house and the molecules inside the house, and what the point was of letting the warm, dry air out and the cold, damp air in when we live in a dreary place like Edinburgh. And my mother would ignore him and sing, "The sun has got his hat on a day like this." Now, I'm actually I'm a grandmother, a step-grandmother, and it's interesting when you take on a new role, you discover that some of the stereotypes about that role aren't exactly true about what it's like. Somebody a little while ago described a grandmother as being slow and kind, and I thought, well, actually, I'm not always slow, and I'm not always kind. So I thought I would explore a little bit more about what being a grandmother was. This is called Grandmothers. We catch a glimpse of a granddad in a grandson's face, recognise his sister's worried forehead from a mum's school photograph. Our grandmas told tales of dashing uncles who died in the war and had freckles just like ours. We see the line, sometimes we pull it. Childcare is exhausting. We want to help, but when we do, we mustn't joke about those theories from the internet. We stick up for the kids and let them play in mud when we're in charge. We can't help thinking that our best traits may have skipped a generation. We notice that our children do forget that we have lives. We don't tell them of our wilder jaunts, they'd worry. We don't like to think of when they might have to care for us or to decide to put us in a home. We hope that the grandchildren will stick up for us. Okay, this is the second last poem. And it's about this very academic school, girls' school that I went to, which was founded to help women get into medical school, which is a laudable aim. But the way they tried to do it really had left something to be desired. The main thing was that they tried to make us to compete with each other as much as possible. So that's what this poem is about. I have exaggerated a little bit, but not all that much. It's called ABC. We should feel proud to be the A's. We have the chance to become doctors, which is what the clever women who set this school up battled for. Miss Duncan is teaching us quadratic equations, which the B's don't do. She chalks one up on the board. We race to work it out and be first. The B's are encouraged to strive to be A's, but they usually stay put. They have more fun than us and are not expected to do well. They will be secretaries. All the C's will do is get married. In chemistry, they made toffee, while we made sulfuric acid. They get a lot of detentions, but they don't care. They've got boyfriends. When we get in trouble, we are told that more is expected of a girl lucky enough to be an A, and that we should avoid bad influences like girls in the C's. How interesting it would have been to have known then that the handful of classmates who actually made it and who go back and give talks were all C's. And lastly, we're going back to the seaside now. I learned to swim in the sea around about Edinburgh in the days before sewage processing. And we used to go as a whole family to a little beach that was actually under the Forth Bridge. It was a very exciting place to go because sometimes a train came over the bridge. And that was exciting because at the time we were fascinated by toilets on trains and what happened if somebody went to them when they were going over a bridge, if somebody happened to be standing under the bridge. There are two rude words in this poem and they both mean the same thing. It's called the Forth Bridge. Heads held high above our water wings, we do quick breaststrokes in brown sea, mouths tight shut. Jobbies have been spotted sidling by. We sit on rugs with aunties for a chittery bite of Smith's crisps and thermos tea that tastes funny. Above us, the bridge is braced for trains. The rumbling starts, the diesel hoots, we shriek and run for cover. From pennies thrown for luck and jobbies flushed on our heads. We succeed and sing all the way home. 10 green bottles, one man went to mow, squashed up in the back seat and unaware that life will fling us loads more shite. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Elspeth. Brilliant. And again, lots of messages coming through from the floor. Jenny, love changing the air. Love the phrase, Elspeth. From Catherine, beautifully read. And Barbara, great poems. And Pauline, wonderful poems. Lots and lots. Well done to the C's. And Olivia, lovely humour. And lots and great ending. So thank you ever so much, Elspeth. Everyone really, really enjoyed that. So moving on, as I said, I did mention a little bit about Maytree and where we came from. I appreciate there's lots of writers amongst us, lots of poets, and what's really wonderful to see, there's lots of Maytree folk out there, lots of past Maytree, lots of present and lots of future Maytree folks. So that's really lovely. It's lovely to see that we're creating a little family around Maytree. So a little bit of a history about Maytree. It was developed out of the Poetry Village, and if you're not familiar with the Poetry Village, it's an ongoing project, but it's also an online web zine, if you want to call it that, online magazine. where we publish 2 poems each week, one poem by one poet, every Monday and every Thursday. We're always open for submissions, so if you search out the Poetry Village and if you want to submit, send us some submissions. Please don't get too disheartened if you don't get in, because we have become very, very popular over the past year. So unfortunately, the worst part of being an editor is that we have to send no's out occasionally. But that's not to say that your poem doesn't fit or work. It just might just not be right for that time, and we have to give some variety for the readers. But we've become very, very popular. Over 4,000 subscribers now, lots of organic visits during the day. And it was really through editing the Poetry Village that I sort of saw that there was lots and lots of people out there that were kind of initially kind of stuck at first pamphlet published, can't get a collection, where do we go from there? And lots of really, really talented writers going astray, really. So Maytree Press was kind of developed out of that to give writers who had already had a publishing history and also new writers a place to go, really, and our doors are open. So in our first year we published 12 pamphlets. Due to COVID and issues around launch events and so on, we've had to reduce that for this year. So we have an open submissions window in autumn. That's always well publicised in our newsletters, which you can all sign up to from the website. And again, we had well over 100 submissions last year, and from that, 6 lucky folk were offered publishing contracts. In addition to that, we had a couple of people that were left over from last year, which we didn't go ahead with publication due to COVID, so they're also coming out. So we'll be running about 10 publications again this year. So again, we're really small. We're a small press, but we'd like to give a sort of personal sort of way of which we do things. In addition to the open submissions, what is new for this year, and it already has been leaked in one of our newsletters, sort of hints towards it, is that we're opening an award. We've previously published a couple of pamphlets under 3 Trees edition. The 3 Trees editions are slightly different because one of the one of the aspects of the Poetry Village is trying to get poetry to people that might not be willing readers. So it's, in other words, forcing poetry on people and saying, there you go, have a bit of that. And what we've previously done, we've put poetry books in pubs, cafes and all sorts of things. And lo and behold, people have actually picked these things up and read them and thought, actually, that's quite good, because the last time I actually read any poetry was at school and I didn't like it. But they realise that there's an awful lot of things out there. And for myself, it's very much like music. You can't like all music that's out there, and reading and writing is very much the same, you know. So people just need to sort of get over the fact that it's poetry and realise that there might be things that they enjoy in there. So part of the 3 Trees award will be, yes, people will get a publishing contract, they'll get some free books, but also the 3 Trees also get sent out to various non-profit organisations at the author's choice. So we're particularly looking at schools or libraries and things like that. And we'll send a certain amount of books out to those organisations and force a bit of poetry on them, and they can have it whether they like it or not. So if anybody's interested, as I say, you're hearing it first from the horse's mouth. We'll be launching that award on World Poetry Day, which is the 21st of March. That's mainly because I like dates. So it's 21st, 21, 03, 21. So I kind of like things that go like that. My dog doesn't, she's moaning at that point now. So we'll be launching it on there. As I say, if you want to hear about it first, sign up to the newsletter. If you're not interested in the award, there will be a small fee, obviously, because we've got to try and pay for it. So that will be £15 to enter that award, which we think is pretty good value. to what you get in return for it. But if that's not for you, then there'll be the open season towards the end of the year. And seeing how things go with COVID and everything will be dependent on what our sort of publishing world will look like next year. But we are here to stay. So it's all going well at the moment. We have just had our complete catalogue acquired by the National Poetry Library, and all future publications have been acquired as well. So things are looking really positive. So it's all looking good. So that's Maytree Press, and in addition to that, we're publishing some absolutely fantastic books, which, lo and behold, that's why we're here tonight, because of this one, which is the cue for Pauline to get ready. And I hope she's not going to knock the mobile off or whatever she's reading from at the moment. So we're here to celebrate Pauline's second collection with Maytree, The Weight of Snow. It's absolutely fantastic, just as The Ghost Hospital was, which is still getting rave reviews across the internet, across social media, and I'm sure The Weight of Snow will do exactly the same for Pauline and for Maytree as The Ghost Hospital did. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Pauline.
Thank you very much, David, and thank you to Maytree as well. I'd like to just say something. If you haven't got a Maytree book yet, I would recommend this beautiful Colin Bancroft book called Impermanence. So if you heard Colin tonight and loved his work, order his book, because it's a beautiful book. I'd like to also thank very much the way David produces these books and the team at Maytree produce them. I think one thing that's particularly noticeable is the beautiful production quality of the books, and in particular the artwork and the covers. And I was very touched by the beautiful painting that is on this, my second pamphlet with Maytree, The Weight of Snow. And David is the artist who has produced that painting. So thank you very much for that. This is a collection. Colin talked about a theme in his work being very much about loss. This is a collection that is about the weight of grief and loss in a family. And it's my family, but it was an historical event that started the grief. And it was the death of my mum's sister, Joan, who I never knew, because it was 9 years before I was born that she died. She was killed at the age of 10. So that is the devastating moment that the poetry moves around. But really what I'm interested in exploring, it's something that Frank Biddart talks about. He's an American poet who I love. And he talks about the particularity of experience and detail, and the more personal you can be in your poetry, somehow the more universal the reach can be. And I think it's very important that we write and consider things that touch us, that are important to us. It's something that I find and found in Colin's poetry and in Elspeth's poetry. Although different in tone and approach, there's a great humanity and compassion there. And I'm interested in my poems in people, in the stories of people's lives. And this book is also dedicated to my sisters, Debbie and Rachel, who have joined us this evening, and in memory of our sister who died at 2 days old. Thank you everyone for coming and taking time to share this evening with us. So I'll just go into the poems. The first one is The Weight of Snow. In the coldest winter, my Nana danced in her new kitchen after years of waiting for a corporation house. The ounce of joy, a rare legacy. She held out her fleshy arms, her hands seeking warmth and purchase, lifted her foot in the delicate way familiar to those who knew her. Though a heavy woman, she was a fine dancer. Her husband's voice rises. It's breaking my heart to remember the dreams we depended upon, as though he had a premonition, the first invisible mutation of cells and the final snowfall. A letter to Nana bereaved. If you were not 60 years dead, I would hold your fearful hand, tell you about the few words I read about your daughter Joan. This message on a media site for our old town. I would like to know her burial place to pay respects. 20th of January 1954, a day of cold, wind and heavy rain in Widnes, Lancashire. He saw her swept away by the trailings of a lorry. The old man writes, even now I see her pennies spinning in the road. Inquest. Ada thought Widnes the bottom of the sea, said he'd killed their daughter as good as holding the wheel, his pity for the driver, the impetus for accidental death. Barnes Road changed in 1954. She felt the earth shift like the ocean floor, her lungs brimming in the underslink. Refused to attend the hearing, but kept her own verdict. Her daughter's fall on the Daily Road, the hand she married clasping the killer's hand. He heard her from the bottom of the stairs. Her body hit him hard, full force, a blur of rotting motherhood or wolf. The inexorable tide against a coastal wall, the ghost of placental sound reverberated in the dead of night, in the bricks, cracked the mortar, spilling from the points like broken time. She bit his hand, believed her grief could snap his wedding ring. He could not convince her to wear her hat or leave it on the stairs. She dreamed of demersal trawling nets, of diving bells regurgitated. He had no way to find her love again. His act of charity irretrievable, monolithic in the sediment, causing bubbles in her large joints, accretions of scabs and skeletal promises. Nana Balloon. My dead grandmother, a hot air balloon fallen to earth. All her seams gave way to snow on the edgelands. Tough wildflowers pushed through crusted clay, found the sun's touch, kept hold of the rain. Blue heath milkwort for her eyes. Her ropes were too loose. She rose too soon, too far, too pliant for the velocity, too green to survive the scar. At the edge, she turned, the soil left a shadow of wood vetch, the promise of sweet pea. Each flower holds its lilac stripes, like words in an obituary. Barnes Road, 1967. Wendy kept PG Tips cards and badges from Robinson Jam. Billy the lodger blocked the hall with his deafness and Triumph bike. Little Jody shot rats with a borrowed gun. The weary beds upstairs were off the floors on bricks. Tate and Lyle's open bag, its sugar-plated spoon, a chemistry experiment for the morning. Mary Hopkin sang out from the red and grey dance set. As we tried to bounce without any give, we'd sing and dance forever and a day. Mum didn't want Joe Sr. to end there, unable to breathe in the chaos of Nana's death. Mum said Nana Ada's dying face was blue. Her howling made them all afraid. At first, she'd given up. So when the fight came, a bit more positive in tone, this, I think, a bit more wistful, because it's one of those memories of school. It's strange how I think the older I get, the clearer memories from when I was younger become. And this is about marching down Kingsway in Widnes to go swimming. I thought it'd link a little bit with some of Elspeth's swimming poems. And after this, I've just got one more poem, which is a longish poem, Delivery Room, but this one is called Swimming. We walked past Drugan's on the way, hand in hand to Widnes Baths. Her mum took in new unwanted babies, raw and loveless. No surprise when Susie became a nun. No wonder she loved God, brought up by saints, all that mithering for other women's kids. And all those others on the march to Widnes Baths from the same class, where are they now? Shingler, Hardman, Chadwick, Crompton, Colquitt, Cullerton, Thornett, Alveston, Johnson, Cunningham, Durkin, Hardman, McKeever's lad and Cav. Bold boys and girls, ready to jump in at the deep end when we had voices to throw and nothing to say. And my final poem is Delivery Room. My bones and muscles pushed down, feral labour, afraid of certain death, held in this pain, a body drifting from safe harbour, or stuck at certain heights where oxygen is thin and winnows away like hot sand, or steam that shadows glass in the kitchen. Far from calm and home, I sensed a voice. It resonated, then faded like light, the sudden clockwork music of ancient toys. How I saw her without eyes to see, lids closed with terror at the second stage, I don't quite know. A kind of purgatory held us both as I fought for life, and she came to tell of her dying at the age we share, to say how very much like me she looked. She looked older than 39, and though her eyes were blind, she seemed to see, to comprehend this agony of mine. The sadness that filled my mind, stultified my heart, stopped syllables from forming into words, prevented my humanity in part. I was a crouching animal giving birth in the cold moments just before my son set his solid self upon the earth. She said, "It's Nana, don't be afraid of all you've thought, imagined, dreamed of me." She stood beneath a wall light, half in shade. It was my need for peace that caused most pain. I tried to find our Joan each day I lived beyond her, my sweet dumpling dead at 10. No mother can accept such death. My own was terrible because it was too late to fight for life. Metastases, the bone, made my youngest motherless at 7, like some stupid joke an idiot repeats, though TB, not cancer, took my mama to heaven. Her smile reached up to each sightless eye, as though irony brought some relief. She touched her back, started with a cry of hurt much lower, longer than her own. She turned to pull her dress below the wound which seeped and sparkled, prompting her to moan this open place. She did not show her breast where it began, a small hard stone, sometime soon after Joan was killed. She couldn't rest in searching for her, couldn't bring herself to see the doctor, humiliating to open up her dress. And I was half mad with sobbing, anger, devastated. I longed to die, then longed to live too late. My life had sorrows, but was not wasted. She closed her dark, unseeing eyes and hands, then moved towards me slowly, like a note of music for the hungry heart, a note that binds all memory, fear, love, experience. Please pray, find saints to intercede for me, not clever, ones with good, plain common sense who know the torture of the grief-stricken, the wandering ones like me who search and search. I cannot find her here, where we're still broken. Pray hard that I may find eternal peace and yet reach heaven, reach my lovely girl. Pray hard that God may grant me my release. Then, as the final pain came, she was gone, and headlong, crashing into sound and light, my glorious boy arrived, my peaceful son. Let perpetual light shine upon her. I could speak. I opened both my eyes, breathed hard, and saw my husband holding in the air our son, our child, an offering, a holy object. Thank you.
Thank you, Pauline.
Okay, thank you, David. Thank you.
Fantastic. Obviously, people were transfixed, but comments are just coming through now, which you'll be able to read. But really moving, always a pleasure. Great reading, Pauline. I love this pamphlet and get even more from the poems by hearing you read them. And fabulous, stunning. They're coming through thick and fast now. So fantastic, mesmerising, wonderful reading. So yeah, so no questions as such. No, that's my dog. So no questions as such. So I'm sure you'll have all your personal contacts with Pauline. So that's it. That wraps up the official launch for The Weight of Snow. Just from me, next week sees the release of Sean Street's wonderful The Sound Recorder. Sean's with us tonight. Have they arrived yet, Sean? He's there. He's awake.
Yeah,
yet?
I'm here. Yeah, they arrived. They arrived today, and they look wonderful.
Brilliant.
So I'm
safe
delighted.
and sound. Right, brilliant. So
Safely here.
So as well as getting in touch with Pauline to buy lots of her books, you can get in touch with Sean and buy lots of his. I recommend it. And obviously, I don't need to recommend Colin's because Pauline's done that. But in other words, any spare money you've got, just buy lots of Maytree books off all these wonderful authors. And before my dog pulls my computer off the thing, she can do about an hour on a Zoom meeting. Can the border collie down here? So that's it from me. As I said, thank you for all the wonderful comments. It has been recorded. Sorry, Colin, I've done my usual worst host in the world, and I didn't press the recording button until Elspeth came on. But we'll sort that out. I'll invite you to another reading, and we'll get you recorded at some point. So, but thanks ever so much. Thanks, Colin. Thanks, Elspeth, and thanks ever so much, Pauline. And thank everybody for coming. So, thanks for now, and goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Goodbye, everyone.
Yeah, bye.